You're making one RPG Maker, but I'd stop because you're making the 4th gym. The guy that's supposed to be making sprites for the Pokemon had yet to give you a single one. Oh, dude, welcome to commissioning artists. As a VTuber, I get to experience this a lot. I don't know why it's so bad. I think I can guess, but like, I don't really know why it's so bad. Commissioning artists and trying to get them to stick to timelines and follow through with what they told you they were gonna do is like pulling teeth sometimes, man. And then when you find ones that are good, you have to hold on to them for dear life because so many of them are just so genuinely like ass at sticking to work timelines that they promise you outwardly in writing. They just can't do it. VTubers and planning. The VTubers themselves can be pretty bad at planning, but I'm talking about artists. Artists are even worse. Actually, I think they're similarly terrible. Nah. They're similarly terrible with keeping to what they say they're going to do, which I get it if it's just a thing that you said you might want to do and that's it. When it's work you're doing for someone else and they're like paying you to do this and you can't even do it on time and you set an expectation. Someone's like, yo, we're 3 months out from this thing. I need this art by this exact date. Can you do it? And they'll be like, yeah, you know, I got a couple other commissions, but it should be fine. It's not even a tight timeline. I got you. Then you're a week out and you're like, hey, just checking in on how this is going. Oh man, sorry. Actually, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired, man. You know, life's so hard. I'm gonna need some time, you know? Like, okay, if that happened occasionally, I'd be like, all right. But like so many of them do, like almost all of them do it. I think this is when people complain about companies and having bosses, whatever, and they're like, my manager doesn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. I like to remind that the reason a lot of that structure exists is because when you have people just do without someone breathing down their neck, this is what happens. This is what happens to most people when there's no consequence of getting fired. Yeah, you might lose that client. Oftentimes they can just talk that client into not caring or like not leaving them a bad review. The person will be like, oh, they said they were sick. They said they were tired, so I can't possibly. Oh, it might be crashing. No, it's just lagging. You know, and they like use excuses to keep people from calling them out. Sometimes these things are legit, and the problem is you can't always tell when it's not. Someone might actually be like chronically ill, and you're like, well, I don't want to bother this person about their chronic illness. So you're not going to call them out on Twitter. And then there are other people that don't actually have that much of a problem, but will still like say it to you every time as a cop out, but they're actually lazy. So it's really hard to tell the difference, you know, unless you're like literally living in their house. So you just run into a lot of issues with it. And a lot of people don't get called out for being bad at that stuff because, you know, how are you supposed to know who's actually bad at this stuff and who's just like genuinely bogged down with life? But I have so many times hired or commissioned people for all sorts of things, not just artists, but a lot of the time artists, anyone self-employed in this sector in entertainment. And so many times they've been late on a thing or just been quiet, ghosting, whatever. And then I just see them playing games all the time. They're like tweeting about their 500th Uma Musume pull. And I'm like, dog, you keep complaining to me about how you're like, you need more commissions because you don't have money and you're on your 500th, like the horse girl pull. And you're not even doing the work I was trying to pay you to do? Brother, what? It happens a lot. It's really frustrating. But again, like you don't know who you can always call out because they give you all sorts of excuses. And if any of those are true, you'd be like the biggest asshole in the world for calling them out. You know, they would get you crucified. Even if you're right, they would get you crucified online for it if they decided to like get upset about it. So you're just like, well, I guess I can't complain and I just have to sit here. So then you do what I do and you make sweeping complaints. You know? I just tell people on the back end, if someone's like, can you suggest artists for this? If I put in someone's name, but they did that, I'll be like, this person's art is really good. However, super late on this, gave a lot of excuses, don't really know what's true, blah, blah, blah. And I'll just say it. What else can you do? You know, if it involves money and they give their word, nothing else matters. That's how I feel. And then I get told I'm like too much for that. I'll have friends be like, hey, what would you do in this situation? You know, I had this artist that I paid for this thing and then they haven't done it. It's been 2 weeks past due, but they say they're really sick. I would be like, okay, well then the moment they started getting sick and thinking that they should have maybe had some issues getting this thing done, they should have told you and set a proper expectation early and given you early enough notice to maybe swap artists, but they didn't, right? Like there's so many ways you can like handle differently. Or yeah, you could say, hey, then I would like a refund. I want to work with someone else on this. Would love to work with you in the future. Sorry, you're sick, right? This can be amicable, but sometimes you do that and they bitch out. Or they don't even bitch out. Sometimes they're just like, oh, I really need this money though. And you're like, what? Okay, but you can't do the work right now. Like, sorry, I'm in a position where it makes no sense for me to pay for this right now. Doesn't mean you hate somebody, you know? You're not like, screw them. You're just like, I can't though, you know? But people do that a lot in this industry. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. You hired an artist who was a little late on their original deadline, deadline, but they had a good reason and apologized repeatedly for it, and thread free bonus art. Yeah, I mean, if they apologize, if they set the expectation, there are times where I will push something back for that other person and I'll be like, hey, I really want this thing still. If you can do it in the next week after our due date, I'll still go with it. And like, if they give me enough notice, we can talk about it. And I have enough time to change up my plans, right? But if I find out the day before, I've probably already been promoting a thing to chat the whole time and they have an expectation and blah, 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 you know? It's just tough. I will also say a lot of VTubers, not just VTubers, content creators, are really bad on their end at doing the same thing. They don't check up on artists. So when you hire someone and you give them a due date that's like 2 months out, you should check in weekly, minimum. And you say it beforehand, you're like, hey, not to be annoying, I do like weekly check-ins. Monday is my big like admin day, right? Like my administrative tasks. So you'll probably get a message from me every Monday. Just give me an update, whatever it is. I'm not pushing you. I'm just like updating my notes. You just tell them that beforehand and then you check in. That's like how work works, right? That's how managing anything works. It's just communication. But then a lot of YouTubers don't check in with someone. They only check in the week before a project is due. Then they find out the artist the whole time hasn't moved on it. And they're like, but I need it this week. And the artist is like, oh man. Is the artist technically at fault because you gave them a due date? Yeah. Could you have done something to maybe recoup it? Yeah, right? I've seen people freak out over a lot of things like that. Not just artists, people doing work for them in general. They'll be like, this person was doing this thing for 6 months and I didn't know. And now it's a huge issue. Sometimes when I see people call out someone for stuff like that, I feel like they're similarly complicit, not equally, but similarly, because a lot of the time this problem would have never have happened if people just managed their own careers and checked in on everything that's going on once a week. Like, this thing was happening for 6 months and I didn't know and now I'm mad about it. Brother, you could have found out in the first month if you just asked questions to the people you work with. Right? I don't know, man. I keep seeing this happen and then people will like get pissed at someone and they'll like post about them on Twitter and and I'm like, dude, how are you so like hands off with everything that goes on with your own business that you don't notice things are an issue until 6 months in every time? It's one thing if they like are purposefully obscuring information, that's different. But when they would have just told you if you asked, because they weren't actually trying to do anything awful, they were just like being a little lazy. I mean, like, it's like so avoidable, right? So sometimes, yeah, someone was hiding some and like strung someone along for 6 months. But a lot of the time, those scenarios, it's not that. The person just didn't actually check in. And then they start complaining. And I'm like, I don't think you should be publicly complaining about this. Like, because like you also didn't, take care of your own business properly. So I always feel like that one, I'd be like embarrassed to be posting about that stuff. Probably doesn't help that content creation and art is just one of those occupations that attracts neurodivergent people more than others. Keck L. I personally find that a lot of people that I know that are neurodivergent are better at keeping timelines and communicating because they need structure to feel comfortable that that thing is actually happening on the timeline. So me personally, I don't think that's actually a factor. I think it's the opposite trend for that. A lot of my friends that are artists and are very autistic, when they are sitting there and doing projects for me, they'll be really regimented in when they do their check-ins and how they ask for feedback from me and stuff. And I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. Depends on the person and what makes them neurodivergent, but like, or their specific flavor of it too. But I find that that's the trend for me at least. So I've actually had a better experience there. I think it's just lazy motherfuckers is actually what it is. Lazy, no discipline, straight up. A lot of people that haven't worked other jobs, or if they have, they've never been their own boss. And unfortunately, you can kind of like fail upward in content creation because like if you never check in with artists and then complain about them on Twitter before you even communicate with them properly about what happened and why your commission isn't done yet, and they hate you on the back end, it doesn't matter. Whoever posts first and points fingers first usually ends up being the person that gains sympathy, and then people come to your chat and they're like, I'm so sorry that artist did that thing, they should die, and then you get like 1 billion viewers. You know what I mean? Like it's stupid, but that gets rewarded and I hate it. So then people that do that constantly also just like it just works out, so it just keeps happening. You can be really bad at managing yourself and like freak out at everyone around you whenever your own business stuff doesn't go well, and like people will still rally behind you because they think you're right. I don't know. Yeah, right. Like you got farmed. Exactly. And it's not always done like with malice either. They just like actually just don't get it a lot of the time. Some of them are a little crazy, and I think some of them like just don't care about other people. They're totally willing to step on those other people's careers to make sure that they look good and they don't get called out for being bad with deadlines or whatever, or their own management. But I think a lot of them also just like don't get it. They actually think they're right, and then you can't convince them. What can you do, right? I don't know. Crazy, man. Crazy. You said personally, as someone with autism and ADHD, you find that you always delay personal projects, but the second another person is involved with the deadline, you often get way more organized on top of things due to the anxiety of letting someone else down. Yeah, I think a lot of people are like that in content. So when they promise another creator or artist a thing, they might lock in more. But then when it comes to managing their own business and working on their own projects, they let fall by the wayside because they're like, well, I'm the only one that gets harmed here. Therefore, I don't feel the pressure. There are definitely people with that kind of attitude, and that just sucks because they kind of nerf themselves. Yeah, it's an accountability thing. That's why a lot of people, I think do just better in a work environment where they have a boss and all that kind of stuff, rather than being like an artist who is their own boss. Sometimes these people really would get projects done to be fine if they had someone holding them accountable, but then the moment it's just themselves, they can't do it. I don't know. Having a boss is like a free babysitter. Yeah, free to you, not free to the company, but yeah, free to you. It's nice because they are also the person that that tanks responsibility. So when something bad happens with a project and it's late, that person goes to the higher ups and is like, oh, we couldn't get this thing done in time because of XYZ. And that's great because then you don't have to take any sort of responsibility. And a lot of people need that because they can't take responsibility. They're really bad at it.